What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Passionfroot. I'm Max, and you got me in the car today. If you can't handle me at my car video, then you don't deserve me at my green screen or anything else. That doesn't even make sense. Anyways, welcome back. Before I get started, I just want to say thank you to everyone who has been checking out this channel, who's been engaging with us on our socials. It really means a lot, and we are really trying to do something meaningful here and have meaningful discussions with you all. So it's really appreciated, and we do see all of you who are engaged with us. Today, I want to give you a rundown a bit of my preparation process that went into my band's most recent show. You're gonna initially get the run through of just like what it was like to prep for the actual performance. And from there, I think I want to extend the conversation a bit, but let me spare you the preamble and get right into it. Oh my gosh. So this is one of those late night prep sessions. We got a show coming up at the end of this week, and I am here after a long day's work, and I'm trying to get our backing tracks ready for the show. So I've got this huge work project here that has not quite all of my band's songs, but most of our songs are in there. There's a few we haven't played in a while that I haven't had a chance to actually create backing tracks for because we haven't had a reason because we haven't played them yet. But overall, the majority of our songs are in there, and we've got like backing vocals, extra keyboard parts, introductions and outros, sound effects like additional percussion, stuff like that. All those things, as well as the metronome, the click that's going to keep our drummer on time with everything. Also for this show, I am doing something that we haven't had in our backing tracks before for our live performances, which is that I am going to have bass guitar programming in here. I'm going to show you some screen grabs of this in a second. The bass guitar sound that I'm using for this show is by a company called Solemn Tones, and they made this sample library called Loki Bass, and it's really cool because it's this like gritty, like hard rock kind of metal bass guitar tone, but then it's got this one slider in the library there that's called Enforce, and what it does is it replaces the lowest frequencies of the bass guitar tone with essentially a sine wave or a different waveform, essentially the same kind of sub bass sound that, like, if someone is listening to trap music in their car and they drive by, you know, that like really, really deep sub bass that like shakes the whole neighborhood, that it adds that in place of the low end of the actual bass guitar sound. So you basically get like this really, really thick, deep, resonant low end that's like punchy and a little synthetic, like a bit augmented over what a normal bass guitar would sound like. I'm going to go in here and make sure all of the sounds are balanced according to what we are trying to do with this show and this kind of sound we're trying to get. And from there, I'm going to export those all out, put them all into one file that is going to run partly to our drummer's earphones and partly to the mixer board in the venue where we're playing. And that is going to allow the drummer to hear the music and the click, and the audience to just hear music and not just beep, 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 because nobody wants to hear that. Once these backing tracks are ready to go, we are one step closer to putting on a great show. So the reason I had to program bass guitar parts to play on our backing track is because earlier this year, the band had been kind of just regrouping a bit, getting ready for the year, and we had some major lineup changes. Our keyboardist dropped me a message and said, look, I gotta step back from the band. I've got other things I need to prioritize right now, and I just can't give it the focus that it deserves. And this is not the first time he stepped back from the band. He had kind of been out for a bit and then back in for a little bit. And this was him saying like, hey, like I can't commit anymore to this. I've got too many other things going on, which we totally understood. We're still on great terms with him. But, you know, life gets in the way. Life happens. Life happens and people have priorities, and it's totally reasonable for people to have those priorities. Now, that being said, the band got together for dinner, the remaining members, we got together for dinner and said, okay, well, we're going to regroup, figure out what we're doing, and start planning for the year and the different things we're going to be doing. And at that very same dinner, we had just announced earlier in the week that our keyboardist was quitting the band. And at that very same dinner, our bass player said, hey guys, within a month, I'm moving to a new province, a different province out east in Canada, because I found a new job and it's a really good opportunity. And he explained it to us, and it was a really, really great opportunity. And it was way better than what he had going for him currently in our area. So obviously, we're happy for our bro. We want him to go do what's best for his life. But it's like, we, within like the matter of a week, went from a 5-piece band to a 3-piece with no bass player. Just 2 guitarists and a drummer. And I sing, obviously. But that's how I found myself programming bass guitar parts into our backing tracks, because there's this whole massive section of the band that now is just going to be computerized for good, seemingly. And that changes how we arrange our shows and how we manage the shared space on stage, how we fill up the stage, and ultimately how we fill up the sonic soundscape, because there are parts in some of our songs where it's just keyboards, bass, and drums, or just keyboards, or just bass and drums. And there's going to be parts in our songs where the instruments the crowd is hearing are not actually being performed live by anyone. And it even challenges this very rock music centric idea of what live music actually means.
You wanna tell me about me, how I should act, how I should think, when I should catch my own feelings. And every time you cut me out, I got these thoughts in a bag to push them down, but no, I found that it's hard not believe these little things that have left me wondering.
If you don't know, in rock, there is still a bit of controversy about whether or not backing tracks are a legitimate thing to do. And a lot of old timers and people with a more old school mentality are very opposed to the idea of backing tracks.
So it's just the computer's overloading a bit with, for whatever reason.
That's genuinely terrible. But I think over time, people have warmed up to the idea of doing that. And there's a lot of value that can be added in approaching music that way. You can do really experimental things that can't be performed on traditional instruments and make that a part of your live experience. But it does feel weird when you're playing a song and there's a bunch of keyboards going and neither of the 2 guys standing in front of the drummer are actually playing anything, and there's all this music playing. It can feel a little weird. It can feel a little uncanny.
Fake.
I would say I'm comfortable with it, and we were already playing with a backing track even when we had 5 members anyway. So that's not the issue. The issue for me, and what I think is the much more existential thing, is not being in control of the things happening around me and how it changes this project, this band that I'm passionate about, not being in control of how things play out.
Gotta love that.
People have plans for their lives, people have other priorities, and I can't force them to be part of something that they don't have time for, or that has played a significant part in their life but needs to move on for them. And that's something that honestly is just a matter of maturity and understanding that not everything goes exactly the way you want. And you don't have to think inside this narrow little box that unless I have these exact 5 people, the band can't exist. And I was honestly in that headspace for a little bit. I was struggling with how the band could maintain its identity without key people and the way that they played or their influences being brought into the music. I was just like, oh, it has to be this way or else this vision and this sound can't be what it is. But it's not true. We've learned from each other. All of us have learned from each other over the course of being in this band. All of us have influenced each other's playing, and that influence remains. Like, that is part of the band's identity, story, whatever. And I had to bust myself out of that kind of really reductive thinking.
So, for all of you who are here, how many of you, this is your first time seeing Coven? Yeah, oh, that's a lot of you. I think we've got a few day ones in here, but for those of you who are seeing us for the first time, thank you.
I spent a lot of my life wishing to have a career in music as an artist, not just as like a session musician per se, though there's nothing wrong with that and I respect it and I've done that before, but like as a performing artist creating my own original stuff. I wanted a career doing that, and I spent a really, really long time pursuing educational goals and fields of study that took me very, very far away from that, and in some cases were almost antithetical to that. I studied theology, you guys. Like I went to seminary. I was walking around in like metal band t-shirts feeling like the most out of place person in the world. Lo and behold, I was still able to make being in a band work, and I found work that made sense with where I was at the time and right now. But it's always felt to me like I've been running away from my dream, or that my dream has been eluding me. And it's not until this last little while that I've had to really confront the fact that like the industry itself has changed, the world itself has changed, how music is produced and recorded and distributed has changed, and I've adapted to those things. And the nature of my dream, so to speak, has changed. The industry that I dreamed about when I was a teenager and the format of the independent band or the band on an indie label, it's not the same anymore. The industry that I wanted to be a part of is a different thing now. And I've already been navigating that in the way that my band operates independently. But it's one of those things where if you set a certain expectation in your head, you can really mess yourself up with disappointment and fatigue and frustration and all kinds of things that really don't need to be there. All of this comes from me thinking, why do I need to program bass guitar parts into my backing track? Because I can't control my life. I can't control what happens in the lives of the people around me. Whatever happens, I have to graciously find little ways to work out the details and make things happen in spite of the challenges.
Backpack, jacket, travel bag, pedal board, guitar, music equipment, merchandise, dog stuff.
Hey Rocky, are you ready to be in the video? You ready for our little road trip? You ready for a road trip, Rocky? Hey boy, you gotta put your paw in the back seat though. It doesn't belong up front with me, okay? You ready? You excited? Okay. Ooh, this is dicey. Emerson Avenue, here we are. Almost at the rehearsal studio. A full half hour late because the snow decided to hit and the road conditions decided to also hit. What is this pickup truck driver doing? Taking up way more of the road than he's entitled to. Kinda is a theme, actually. Wonder glorious, we've made it to the studio. We've made it to Link's Music. Can we fit anywhere? Yes, we can fit right here. Look at all this snow. Look at the snow on these cars. Look at all this snow. It is a vortex of snow out there.
Anybody need any preliminary clarifications before we give anything a try? Anything you guys want to take in a particular order, or?
When you said to the wind second chorus thing,
I scratched that. We'll just do it normal.
I think we can just run through the whole thing and then from that we can.
I just have to get the timings.
Yeah, that's fine. Cool. Smooth.
I didn't even practice these songs.
Yeah. Don't forget harmonies on that ending.
What is this pickup truck doing? Oh, spinning his wheels. I like that. So what's up, y'all? I have been hanging out at my grandma's house this week because I'm away from home in Toronto and we've got a show tonight. So I'm getting ready. I'm just getting prepped for that. And part of that process has involved reorganizing my pedal board. So here's the board as it currently stands. Starting from the right, which is where the signal chain will actually begin, I'm plugged in through here to this. That's the tuner. So if I go here and I play E, it should tell us that we're playing an E and it's a little bit flat. This guy is going to here. This is the Digitech drop. The whole point of this pedal is to make things go lower. And it's definitely, I mean, I could see it having uses in other contexts, but it's most certainly for metal. That is obviously it modifies the pitch. This goes through the harmonist. This pedal does everything. It can also pitch shift up or down. You can also, over here, you can pick what key you're going to be in. Like if I know what key the song is in, I can set the key signature and then I can decide what interval I want. If I want a second, a third, a sixth, whatever. And I can have the pedal harmonize the lines I'm playing if I'm playing one note at a time. If I do it with chords, it sounds really, really weird. This guy is going to this guy, my compressor. Compression is one of the most important sound effects there is, and also one of the most difficult to explain to non-musicians. This guy is going to here. This is the wah pedal. This guy goes up and down, and if you have ever heard like the funk guitar that goes wow, that's what does it. This is my first overdrive pedal, the TC Electronic Mojo, and it's a distortion, right? But it's a very, very light distortion, I find. This is my main overdrive that I actually use. This is the Horizon Devices Precision Drive by Misha Mansour from Periphery, and I love this thing. It's really cool. Honestly, I use this to push my amp, which is a one-channel amp. It doesn't have a clean and distorted channel. It just has one channel that can get distorted if you push it hard enough. Look at my teeny tiny amp. That's the gear shift. That's my amp. It's so little, but it's so loud. And I use this to do that. This thing is cool. This guy is going to my chorus pedal. This is a very low budget chorus pedal, but it basically gives it like that shiny shimmering sound that it was very popular in the 80s, and it's great on clean guitar parts or distorted, like lead guitar parts are also cool with this. And then this is my delay, which is an echo effect, and also super useful for getting some echoes on your lead lines. So that's the board as it currently stands. I will probably change the configuration again at some point, but for now I'm happy with it. And this is a huge part of the process for how we get this, well, how I get my sounds. Unhinged, violent, destructive, unlogical. Not nice, not nice, not nice. Oh. So, another show, and it's our first Toronto show since 2019, which is crazy. Like, you'd think we would play hometown more often, but we are a long-distance band, so it's kind of weird. But I'm just glad to be back in town playing a proper Toronto show. Just parked, gonna start loading in. Gonna have to walk a little ways in the cold, but Canada, it is what it is. And I still managed to get the curls looking luscious today. We washed less and conditioned more this week, so, you know, doing what we can on that front. I'm gonna go load out and gonna try to vlog a little bit as we get ready for this show.
If you haven't noticed, I did not think through the process of everything I had to do when I came up here very clearly at all. I promise you we're not just a soft little emo band or something. So let's do something about that. Ready? Thank you.
It's easy to look at the greats and your favorites and the people you admired and say like, well, how did they do it? Well, oh, everything just worked out for them, and look at this amazing final product. Look at this amazing tour they did. Look at this amazing album they wrote. Look at these awesome things they accomplished. That must have just been like, it worked for them. Clearly, here's the final product. It worked for them. And then you hear the stories. One of my favorite bands from when I was in high school and college talked about how through most of their time being signed to a label, like someone else was paying the cost of making their records, they were sleeping in their van or maybe occasionally a motel room. And most of the time they were barely breaking even on their tours. Like for most musicians operating in like the underground music scene, if you're in like a niche music genre, you're not doing huge stadium tours on a fancy tour bus. You are really roughing it. For me, that was some of my favorite music that I'd ever heard in my life. The pursuit of doing something niche and underground and small scale is still very legitimate. I also have to keep in mind, like I recently saw one of my all-time favorite bands in recent memory go on their farewell tour, and they talked about how what to me is probably my favorite record from them almost broke them up multiple times because of how much creative disparity there was between them. And I'm just like, man, to me that was just like such a triumph of a record, like one of the coolest things I've heard in recent memory. And I was like, they couldn't have created something like this unless they all had like a very clear vision, because it's a very unique thing that they accomplished. And nope, turns out that making that record almost tore them apart. and it took some very concerted efforts by a few band members to push through the frustration and the nearly breaking up-ing of the band to make that record happen and ultimately preserve the oncoming future of that band. And I say all that just to say, random chance happens, random unexpected challenges will come your way, and you have to find a way to deal with them. For me, one of my favorite books of the Bible has always been Ecclesiastes, and let me spend some time in a different setting talking about Ecclesiastes. Did I say different environment or different scenery? I meant in the car, in the same seat, in a different location. Ecclesiastes has always been one of my favorite books of the Bible, and I think in part because it feels so drastically different from a lot of the other stuff that's in the Bible. It definitely leans more on the abstract and philosophical side, and it has a gritty, edgy shadowiness to it. It's willing to stare into the bleakness and the uncertainty of life in a way that I don't think a lot of people are comfortable with, and that's always drawn me to it. It's very metal. Ecclesiastes 3 has this great passage that talks about how the best thing you can do with your life is kind of enjoy the ride and make the best of it. Enjoy the moments you have, and really just try to be happy with your work and your process and just what's right in front of you right there. At the end of the day, you don't know God's plan, you don't know the grand scheme of your life, and you never know what's around the next corner. So you have to find the joy in the moments you have. And that's been very instructive for me, both when I first discovered that book when I was a teenager and now into my just like regular adulthood. It is something that I keep coming back to as just fundamentally and intuitively true. For whatever that's worth to whoever's watching this, the journey you're on will continue to have unexpected turns and twists and things that you never saw coming. Learning how to love every moment of it because it's yours and it's what you've got, from what I've seen, goes a long way to making it all worthwhile.
So everybody everywhere, don't be afraid, don't have no fear. Gonna tell the world if you understand. As long as there'll be music, we'll be coming back again. You had better sing this with us. Thank you, that's our show. Stick around for the dance. Come check us out on the merch table.
Wawa-wee-wah.